my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. Today I have some exciting June releases to talk about. I love June. My birthday is June 1st, so obviously I'm partial to June. The sun starts to come out here in Northern Ontario. Finally, we have sunshine, no snow left. We still had snow at the beginning of May, so this is exciting. And I do love summer releases. I do a lot of reading this summertime. I spend a lot of time by the beach, so we have a lot of different genres to talk about today and a lot that I really desperately want to get to and share with you, so let's do this thing. Starting with June 6th, we have a thriller, which I know, don't call me out. I said I was done with thrillers, but I have exceptions. I am a human, I have exceptions, and this is from an author that I've read from before and really loved. So this is The Whispers by Ashley Audrain, who wrote The Push, which if you looked at that book on paper I shouldn't have liked, because I've talked about how I don't love books about motherhood. It's just not an experience I relate to. But that one I really enjoyed and thought it was really interesting and intense, and it's the kind of thriller that works for me even though it leans on the domestic side. So I'm just excited to have something new from this author, and I know that many of you will be as well. The Push was a really popular book. So this one, again, on paper, it is one that I shouldn't like, but I have a good feeling about just because of my experience with The Push. But in The Whisper, we are following 4 suburban families. So again, very domestic. I don't mind following suburban families, but in a thriller, it's not always my favorite. But this is following the story of, I think a boy falls out a bedroom window and he ends up in a coma, and the mother is no longer speaking. And then we get the fallout of that from the perspective of the neighbors who were there on that day and how they were involved. I don't know if we get flashbacks as well. So it could be really good, and I just kind of trust Ashley Audrain and I'm curious about this one, so we will see. I've seen some mixed reviews on Goodreads, but I'm open to trying it. Then we have one I put on here because this is gonna be perfect for me to read on the beach. The cover is adorable. I love the title. This is Mickey Chambers Shakes It Up by Cherish Reed, and she's sitting inside a huge martini glass, and I just love that. And I think this is like an enemies to lovers sort of thing. Opposites attract. Our main character obviously is Mickey Chambers. She works at a university, and during the summer months she takes a job as a bartender, but she has never bartended before and has no idea what she's doing, and she ends up having a romance with the owner of the bar. And I think that this is going to deal a lot with grief, because the owner of the bar, this is his late wife's bar, he wasn't interested in it at all, but he wants to continue it because it's her legacy, right? And then he's kind of grumpy. Obviously he's lost his wife, and he teaches Mickey how to bartend, and they form a connection. So I think this could be really sweet, and as I said, I just love that cover so much. Another thriller, but another author who is one of my exceptions, and that is S.A. Cosby. I love Razorblade Tears, probably my favorite thriller of all time. So this is All the Sinners Bleed. I think it is important to know going in this one that there are some content warnings that I think people have to be aware of, and it starts out with a school shooting. A teacher is killed at a school. So if that is a lot for you, I understand, so avoid this one. But it is following this FBI detective. Again, I don't love police procedurals, but I trust S.A. Cosby, so I think definitely gonna try this one. And it's following the FBI looking into this shooting and discovering something more sinister happening here, and that the teacher was actually abusive. And then I think this opens like a ring of abuse, and there's a serial killer. Sounds like a lot. It's gonna have a lot of content warnings, as I said, but so did Razorblade Tears. But again, S.A. Cosby is a author who I trust, and I'm really excited about this one. I do like a thriller on the beach once in a while. Just has to be the right kind of thriller, and I'm working on what that is for me, but a trusted author. Then we have a horror, and this cover haunts my dreams. I saw it a couple months ago. I remember when this cover was revealed, and it was shocking then. It is still shocking to look at now. One I really want to read, but probably won't buy for my shelves because I just can't. That is creepy cover, and this is Maeve Fly by CJ Lead. And I just love the dichotomy of this character. I think our main character is gonna be really interesting, because during the day she is like a Disney princess at Disneyland. They don't exactly use those terms because, you know, they get sued by Disney, but that's what it is. She plays like a princess. And then at night, she's doing sinister things. That's all I needed to know. This cover is haunting to me. It is so creepy. There's something about teeth. What is it about teeth that is so scary? I just read House with Good Bones, and there's teeth in that. There's something so bone-chilling about teeth. I don't know what it is, but This sounds really good. I think I'm gonna be into this main character. Then we have a historical fiction, so a complete 180 from Maeve Fly, and this is by an author who I know so many people adore. I think she'll become a favorite. I just haven't tried anything yet, but all of her books are on my TBR, and this is The Window's My Name by Isabel Allende. And I know this is not for everybody, but something that I notice I do appreciate when it's done well in historical fiction is when we have two timelines, so one in the past and then one in the present, and we see how those two timelines parallel each other or are connected in some way. So the first timeline is set in Vienna in 1938, and we're following 6-year-old Samuel, whose father disappears in the night and he doesn't understand where his father's gone. But then his mother puts him on a train. It's the last train out of Nazi-occupied Austria into the United Kingdom, and the fallout from all of that. And then the more present timeline is set in Arizona in 2019, and we're following a young girl. She's 7, she's blind, she's with her mother, and they are trying to flee El Salvador on trains as well, so it parallels that first timeline. And this is happening during the new family separation policy. So if you are aware of that policy, you're gonna understand this is gonna be harrowing. But I've heard amazing things about this author and how she handles topics like this one. So I'm really, really looking forward to trying that. I've just gotta get to something by her because I know I'm gonna love her stuff. Then we have a YA contemporary, and I put this on my list because if I see anything with ballet in it, I'm gonna add it to my list. I'm so fascinated by the world of ballet, and this is gonna tell you my age, but when I turned 16, my friends and I went and saw Center Stage at the movie theater, so you can deduce how old I am. And since then, if you watch that movie, you just know how like sinister the ballet world can be, and I think this highlights it as well. But this one follows a black teen dancer, so obviously she's gonna face different hurdles than the characters in something like Center Stage would have faced. She has more to overcome, and she is facing constant bullying, constant discrimination, but dancing is her passion, and there's also a romance in here, so I'm just intrigued by it. As I said, I just like anything to do with the ballet world. I've watched a lot of reality shows about ballet as well. I just think the whole thing is so interesting. Then we have another YA contemporary, and how can I not put this one on my list? It's everything I love in romance. It's the do's and donuts of love. This cover is adorable, a punny title, Donuts. I think it's like a youth Great British Baking Show kind of premise, which you know that I love that in my romance, so I had to put this. And this is by Adiba Jagadar, whose books I've been wanting to read forever. All of her books sound fantastic, but look at the donuts on here. I'm so excited about this one. Again, looks like a fun one to read in the summertime. And it's actually, I'm looking at this now, makes sense because I think I knew that this author was Irish. It's an Irish baking show, a junior Irish baking show. So that just sounds so cute. Moving on to June 13th, the first one that I have here is The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson. And the tagline says, "If you knew how dark tomorrow would be, what would you do with today?" And this cover screams like The Night Circus, which is not a book that I loved. I love the idea of a circus setting book in theory, but in actuality I haven't found one that I like, so I'm open to trying this one. I do think there's things about this that make me think it'll work better for me. Maybe because it's historical, we will see. And the fact that it is queer probably helps too. I think I'm gonna like that part of it. So our main couple in this are Rin, who is a ringmaster in the circus, and her wife, I think it's Odette, yes, who is a trapeze artist. So I'm already intrigued by that. This takes place during World War I, which is different than World War II, but I think the whole idea of this circus happening at this time is interesting, and I've heard that there's a lot of found family in this, which you know is my favorite trope. I'm just gonna read you the last 2 paragraphs of this because this is what got me wanting to read it. But the threats come at Rin from all sides. The future holds an impending war that the Sparks can see barreling towards their show and everyone in it. And Rin's past creeps closer every day, a malevolent shadow she can't fully escape. It takes the form of another circus, with tents as black as midnight and a ringmaster who rules over his troupe with a dangerous power. Rin's circus has something he wants, and he won't stop until it's his. So on top of everything that they're facing, surviving during World War I, there's also seems to be this fantasy element in this form of the other circus, so that really caught my attention as well. So we will see. I am bound and determined to love a circus book, and maybe this will be the one. And now I'm a simple person. I see a Greek myth or time, I add it to my TBR. This one is Psyche and Eros by Luna McNamara. This is a romance. I don't know much about Psyche and Eros, to be honest with you. I feel like so many of the Greek myth retellings that I read focus on the same characters, so it's nice to be pushed out of my comfort zone a little bit, learn some more. So I'm intrigued by this one. The US cover is pretty. Not that this is a video about covers, but I just have to say, the US cover is pretty, but the UK one is stunning, and that is always the case with Greek myth retellings. UK nails it. The US ones, they're fine, but we will see how I feel. I'll probably listen to this on audio and then decide if I should order the Waterstones edition of it. Then we have a new romance from an author I read from the past and really enjoyed, and this is Much Ado About Nia by Uzma Jalaluddin. And she wrote Aisha at Last, which I really liked, and she tends to write these modern day Jane Austen retellings, which is the way to win me over. Set in Toronto, which I love. Look at the CN Tower in the background. This is a Persuasion retelling, which I don't think I've ever read a Persuasion retelling. Read a ton of Pride and Prejudice ones, but you don't get a ton of Persuasion retellings. So this is a sparkling second chance romance inspired by Jane Austen's Persuasion. So obviously this is a second chance romance. We're following Nada, who still lives at home, but she's a very successful software engineer who made an app that kind of flopped, but she was so passionate about it. And her friend is trying to encourage her to go out and meet people. They end up going to this Muslim conference, and she meets a guy who she has a past with but nobody knows about, and they have a romance again. So I don't know, I just really liked Aisha at Last. So I'm excited to try something else by this author, and I own her sophomore novel as well, so I just need to do it. But yeah, the CN Tower on the back of that one really won me over, to be honest with you. Okay, another thriller. I don't know what I'm doing, but again, by an author who I've liked in the past, and I look at this book and there's things about it I probably won't like, but I trust Wendy Walker, so I want to give it a try, and this is What Remains. Now this cover is not my favorite, and yeah, I don't know, we'll see, but the tagline says she saved his life, now he'll never let her go. And I've learned recently, like, this cat and mouse type thriller is not my thing, but again, it's Wendy Walker. I have to give it a try, and I just wanted to put it on your radar because I feel like she's a little underrated. So we're following this detective, and she has lived her life always choosing to do the right thing, seeing things in black and white, and then she finds herself in a situation where she has to choose who lives and who dies. And she's hailed a hero after this experience, but somebody who witnesses what she did is stalking her and is after her. So that's where that cat and mouse thing comes in. There was something about that intrigues me, and I really liked Don't Look For Me by Wendy Walker, so I want to give this one a try. And again, I like the idea of a thriller on a beach, so we will see. Now we have something a little more in my wheelhouse, and I've been eyeing this book for ages since the cover was revealed, because this has got to be one of the most epic covers ever. I want a poster of this cover. It is so cool. And this is The Surviving Sky by Kritika H. Rao, and this is like a Hindu philosophy inspired fantasy, and I think it's like a sci fantasy, which is something I really, really like. I like science fiction in my fantasy novels, because if you ask me to choose, I kind of prefer sci-fi, which is, I know, not a popular opinion, but I love technology, so I'm intrigued by this one. And as you can see, it's obviously taking place in a world that is in the atmosphere, because I think this is like a climate change kind of sci fantasy. And it follows a husband and wife racing to save their living city and their troubled marriage high above a jungle world besieged by cataclysmic storms. So the whole storms thing, it all sounds interesting. I know that our husband and wife are kind of separated at one moment. I don't know, there's been a lot of buzz for this on Twitter, and I just love the cover, as I said. So definitely one I'm going to try the moment it comes out. This next one I have a ALC of from Libro FM, and I'm nervous about it. It is A Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand. Claire Legrand, who wrote Soccer Girls, which is one of the first horror books I ever read, and I really loved it. It's YA, but I thought it was really well done, but I haven't read any of her fantasy, and I'm not sure if I will like it, and the reviews on Goodreads on this one are not great, but I'm trying not to let that stop me from trying it myself, especially since I do have an ALC of it. This is the first book, and I think this is adult, so yeah, the cover is really cool. This sounds like a pretty basic setup that we've seen before, but I'm curious to see what Claire Legrand does with it. We're following like a young, gorgeous princess who comes from a really lucky family, but they all have powers and she doesn't. And deep down, she's very depressed. She lost her sister. I think her sister was taken away from the family, and she ends up having a romance with a guy that she shouldn't be in love with. His family was enchanted by a demon, and then something happens in the world they live in, and I'm sure she unlocks her powers, and they have a romance. So a pretty like basic setup, but I'm curious to see. We will see. I'm definitely gonna at least try it. June 20th. Again, I love this cover so much. This is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron, who wrote Cinderella is Dead, but this is a YA horror. And I love a good YA horror, and I'm just into the entire vibe of this cover. And somebody said you're not gonna look at owls the same way again, which is interesting in itself. And this is like your ideal summer read. Perfect book to read on the beach because it is set at a summer camp. And the whole point of the summer camp is that there's actors and people go here to pretend that this place is full of serial killers or that you're running for your life. And I think our main character actually plays the final girl in this cast. And then obviously people start dying for real and she might be a real final girl. So a little convoluted but fun. I like that entire premise. I love a good slasher in the summertime. I don't know what that is about, but I know I'm not alone. So that looks like a good one. This is one that I just found, but it looks really good. This is Garden of the Cursed by Katie Rose Poole. And the tagline says, all that glitters can be cursed. This is a YA fantasy / mystery duology, and I do like a little mystery in my fantasy once in a while, so that sounds interesting to me. So this is following a curse breaker named Marlowe, who reluctantly pretends to be in love with one of the most powerful nobles in Karaza City to gain entry into an illustrious and deadly society that holds the clues to her mother's disappearance. And it says it's perfect for fans of Veronica Mars. So Veronica Mars is all I need to know. I am intrigued by this one. So we will see how I feel. Maybe some fake dating in here as well. So, and I love a good fantasy duology. I don't know what that is, but that's perfect for me. And we have a sequel that I've been waiting for ages. This is The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. This is the sequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which I read last year and really, really liked. And do not read the synopsis of the sequel if you have not read the first book. It completely spoils what happens at the end, so just avoid it entirely. I won't tell you anything about the sequel. But the first book follows these friends and they grew up together. There's lots of Spice Girl references in the first book and they are all witches, but they all end up in different parts of life. One is part of the Majesty's Royal Coven, like in the UK. One has started her own group of witches. One is not practicing anymore and they all have different opinions. It all comes to a head, lots of drama, really great commentary. So I really, really liked it. It is contemporary as well. So just know that if that's not what you're expecting this to be. There's a bit of a romance. I thought it was fun. I really, really liked it. I liked the commentary. It's really heavy-handed on the commentary, but I appreciated it. And I've been looking forward to the sequel since the ending of the first book was such a shock for me. But do not read the synopsis of the sequel. It spoils it. The last book that I have for June 20th is Night's Edge by Liz Karen. And this is a sun-drenched novel about the darkest secrets we hide and how monstrous we can be to the ones we love most. So our main character is Mia, and she grew up in a very strict household with a very strict mom who may or may not have been a vampire. That is the vibe that I'm getting from this. And then Mia grows up, she meets a musician named Jade, and she sees this as a chance to escape her mother, and it might be her only way to survive. So I don't know, that's a very vague synopsis, but I see vampires, creepy cover, and I'm excited about it. June 27th, we have a romance to break up a lot of the thrillers and horror and fantasy I've talked about in this video, but this is Will They or Won't They by Ava Wilder, who wrote How to Fake It in Hollywood, which is one I haven't read yet, but it is on my radar. I'm one of these people who likes celebrity romances. I know they're not for everybody, but I like them. But the ones I tend to gravitate towards are a romance between somebody who's famous and somebody who's not. But in this one, they're both famous, and I'm intrigued by that. They are bringing back a show. I think our main character was on a really popular TV show. Then she left to try and make it big in movies. That didn't work out, and she's coming back to the show for the final season. And she's always had chemistry with the love interest in the show. And so maybe they have a romance outside of it as well. That sounds cute. I like celebrity culture. I'm into pop culture. I like behind the scenes of things like that, so I have a good feeling about that one. I love a good cozy mystery. This one looks really fun. It's A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. When a wealthy bachelor drops dead at a ball, a young lady takes on the decidedly improper role of detective in this action-packed debut comedy of manners and murder. What more do you need to know? It looks very Jane Austen, Regency. I'm into that. Looks like a good time. We have a new book from Ashley Polston. I bought The Dead Romantics and I told myself I would save it for the beach. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to this summer and I just know I'm gonna love it because everybody I know loves it. And this is a new romance from her. This is The 7-Year Slip. And it seems like Ashley Polston takes these contemporary romances and that adds like a little magical realism twist, which I love. So in The Dead Romantics, it's a romance with a ghost. And in this one, she has a romance with a man who's actually living 7 years in the past. So that could be really interesting. I don't love time travel that much, but I'm curious about this one. Then we have Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton. This is a dark and seductive YA fantasy debut where a siren must choose between protecting her family and following her heart in a prejudiced kingdom where her existence is illegal. Give me all the books about sirens. I love a good siren novel. And then finally I have another Jane Austen-esque murder mystery, and this is the third book in the Jane Austen mystery series. I think that's what it's called, and I've loved all the books in this. The first one was Pride and Premeditation, the second was Sense and Second Degree Murder, and this final book, I think from what I can tell, which makes me sad, is Manslaughter Park, which obviously is a Mansfield Park retelling. And these are just murder mysteries following the characters from the original books. They find themselves in these situations that are much different from the originals, but they feel like the real characters. I don't know how Tirzah Price does it, but they feel the same, and she catches the tone, and I just love them so much. So I'm really excited, and I heard that obviously Liz and Darcy from the first book they make an appearance in this one, so I love that. My battery's dying. I wish I could talk about these books more with you, but I am just so excited for summer reading. Let me know what book that is coming out in June you're most excited for. If you love summer reading as much as I do, let's talk about all the things. Thank you for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.